Hey crafty people, welcome back to my channel, and in case you're new here, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. I do paper crafting, card making, junk journaling, and mixed media art. Let's get crafting! Welcome to my channel. So today we are going to be playing with alcohol inks. So I've got out a variety of colors, we'll go through them as we go. And what I've got out on my glass mat right now is some clear contact paper or sticky back plastic. I picked mine up at my dollar store, and it's, just a clear adhesive covering, like a shelf or drawer liner. And the stuff that I got at my dollar store is 18 inches by 4 feet. And what we're gonna do is create some faux antique tape. Now, I've done this on my channel before, and I usually use the Scotch clear tape for making it, but the twist I want to do this time around is do some stamping on our tapes. And this was inspired by Crafty by Tony. And so she uses the clear contact paper, so she makes huge amounts of it at once. I don't use it as much as she does, so I don't tend to need like a huge amount. The tapes usually work fine for me, but since I'm stamping on it, having a bigger surface is going to make it a little easier to do the stamping. All right, so for the first one, we're going to go more in the traditional, like, grungy faux tape colors. So I've grabbed out caramel, and I've got butterscotch. And pretty much what I'm going to do is I've got I've got my alcohol ink blending tool, which it's got Velcro on it, and I'm just going to put a piece of felt. Now, they do sell felt to go with this, but I stopped buying their refills and just take a sheet of felt and cut it to size. Usually I try and remember before I use up all the ones I have to go and start cutting some, so I can use the ones, because I used the ones that came with this as a template for cutting felt pieces. I forgot this time, so I just kind of winged it to cut them, so they're like a little odd in shape, but that's all right. And we are gonna put some caramel on here. Now, you could also put it directly on the piece, doesn't really matter, either way will work. We'll do a little bit of both here. And I'm realizing I forgot to make sure I had rubbing alcohol handy, and I'm just gonna smudge it around. And I've got it on my glass mats magnetic, so I can pull out my little magnets to help weigh it down, because it's curling up, even though I put it under something heavy last night. Apparently it wasn't under long enough, so. And I'm not too worried about getting alcohol ink on the magnets. I can always wipe it off. We need a little bit more. Kind of don't want the full-on like swirly texture I got from rubbing it on, but that's the lovely thing with alcohol ink, is it'll react to itself, and you can get all sorts of lovely texture in if you come back in with it. So let me see if I can find the things I'm like, do I have? Oh, and you know what? I did have more felt pads. I just didn't remember where I put them. I've also got a mister with isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol, and you want the 91% or higher, because that will also get your stuff to move. And I'm going to do a little corner over here where I just spritz a little. See, and that does that. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, Ranger also has an alcohol blending solution, which you can use to move around the alcohol inks. Do not put this in a mister. It's got resin in it. You should not be inhaling the vapors. Like, you don't want it airborne. So that's my PSA on alcohol inks. And we're going to set this guy aside, let it dry completely. I am going to grab, what am I going to grab? paper towel. I also feel like I need to check and see what my dog's up to. Okay, he was not trying to dig out of the yard, which is something he often tries to do. Now what I'm gonna do is just wipe everything off a little bit so that we can put out our next piece and have play some more. See, that's the one nice thing with alcohol, a little rubbing alcohol or alcohol inks, a little rubbing alcohol, and you've got it completely cleaned up in no time. Now, as much as I love the faux antique ink look, my preferred color combo is I kind of like to pull in mushroom and some of the other gray colors and blend those in. So we're gonna switch our little felt pad out. We're gonna put down another piece of our contact paper. And the reason why I'm actually wiping them off before reusing them is because, like I said, alcohol inks will reactivate each other. So if I didn't, I'd end up getting the browns on. So I'm grabbing Chronicle. Mushroom, which mushroom's one of my favorite colors to play around with. It does such cool things. Some gravel. And I think this one is some smudge, because I really like the more gray colors. And let's give that a mix around. And I'm gonna add a little rubbing alcohol to my felt pad to help get it moving a little more over in this corner. Make sure we got full coverage over here. All right. Set that one aside. I'm gonna do another one using those same colors and pulling in a few more colors. And Juniper. It's another one of the colors I really like. Yeah, this is one of my favorite color combos for making vintagey tapes because it's such a cool color combo. I like that. And I'm not mad at like the marks the magnets are making, because that'll make for some more interesting texture on these guys. I did not cut enough strips, I don't think. I have a feeling I'm gonna end up making more of these off camera. All right, so did all those, and I actually had some more colors I wanted to add to that, but there were like, for the stamping phase, there are specific things I want to stamp that I want to do with different colors. So we're gonna hold off and come back, and I'm gonna make some, probably cut up some more pieces so that I can play and make some more. All right, what am I looking for? Looking for this, because we are changing colors again. All right, so for this one, we are gonna go with the blues because I managed to get some of the blue. I got some blue color on there. So I've grabbed Cobalt, Yonder, and Indigo, because what I want to end up stamping on this is a bunch of like postmarks and stamps, because I last month when we were playing around with the different paper pads, I had out the Tim Holtz 8x8 paper pad, and I think the 12x12 with the, like, I think it's Correspondence is the name of it. So I'm thinking having some blue inky background pieces or faux stamp pieces would work really cool with the like postal theme journal I'm planning, since I made some pieces that would work in a postal theme journal using that paper pad. So I pulled out blues and I pulled out reds to do. This one I think I'm gonna spritz a little because there are a few spots that are a little heavy-handed. Get that moving a little bit more. On the side. I'm gonna have a bit of a cleanup. Next color combo is Cranberry, Crimson, and a little Rosewood. I'm gonna go very light-handed with the Rosewood. We'll do one more. Let me just clean this mess up. And a couple of cleanup related tips. I try and remember to wipe off the nozzles with like a paper towel with some rubbing alcohol on it, just so that the caps don't get all cruddy, because then you might have some difficulty getting the caps off. Also, after you're done with your session, you should not keep your felt pieces to use again later because they are highly flammable. They also tend, I find, at least for me, once I've let them sit and dry out, they get really, really hard. So they don't actually work very well if you do try and reuse them. All right, last color combo. And we're going into the realms of pink. So I've got pink sherbet, Cosmopolitan, and I'm going to do a little bit, a very little bit of raspberry. And I'm thinking of possibly putting in a drop or two of smudge. A bit of raspberry. As you can see, this is one I did not clean up. And then you end up also risking getting ink sludge on your piece if you open your thing over your piece. I forgot how bright Cosmopolitan is. Definitely going to add a little smudge. All right, I'm going to clean up and get us set up for our next step in the process, which is going to be the stamping. So I'll be back in a bit. Okay, so I've got out my mouse pad so that I have something squishy behind for stamping on. And luckily, these magnets are strong enough to hold this down and, you know, through the mouse pad. If you don't have something magnetic and little magnets to hold your piece down, you could always use like washi tape on the corners to hold it in place. But I figure I've got the magnets. I hardly ever use them. I should use them. Now, for the first bit we're going to do is I've pulled out, it's a Crafty by Tony stamp, and I'm thinking it's going to be really cool. Stamped with alcohol lift ink on our faux antique tape. And it's this image here. So that's going to end up being white. So I'm thinking that's going to be kind of cool. And it's, I think the stamp set is Departure, and it's CBT0024. I'll leave a link to her Etsy shop down below. I don't know if this is still available and in stock, since she's a small independent seller. It's kind of, she stocks, things sell out, and then she restocks some things kind of situation. So I will leave a link to her down below. I'm just trying to find a stamping block I can use that will fit between the magnets, and that should work. I am gonna ink it with alcohol lift ink. I've also got a scrap piece of like coffee dyed paper off to the side here. Let's scoot this over a little bit more. That I can stamp, because what the alcohol lift ink does is it lifts the ink up with your stamp, and then you can stamp the ink you've lifted onto something else. So not sure how well this is going to work, just because it's the first time I'm using this stamp. I'm probably not the wisest decision to opt for doing this technique the first time out of the gate with a clear stamp, but we're going to give it a try. And you just want to hold it on for a second to let the ink do its job. Ooh, I think it's going to work. All right, I'm going to stamp it over here onto just a piece of coffee dyed paper I've got over here. Not much stamped off. Now what we're going to do is grab a clean paper towel, and we are going to dab first and then come back in and rub to lift off all of the excess ink. And it's subtle, but it's there and it's kind of cool. Let me get a little closer so you can see. See? So yeah, I like how that came out. I'm kind of wondering, because I was playing around with my alcohol lift ink and did something else, if I maybe need to re-ink it, because I got some stuff from the stamp onto it, and so ended up wiping a lot off, and it may need re-inking. I may do that. Let me do that. Okay, I added some re-inker to that, so hopefully that'll work. I've also grabbed out Tim Holtz Correspondence, that's CMS225. I kind of want to try stamping this guy with the lift. And we are going to also do some stamping with STAZ-On on. It's a bit of a filming mishap. I thought I hit record. Apparently I didn't. So these are using the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous set, Stamp Collector CMS225. This is from that Darkroom Door stamp set. These are some Crafty by Tony stamps, and this is Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous Correspondence CMS225. And what I've decided is, with the alcohol lift ink, stamping with less detailed stamps seems to be working better. Although I have a feeling these guys are still going to be cool when we cut it out and use it. Now, before we switch to the red, where I'll show you doing the alcohol lift on the colored bit, I wanted to do a little bit of stamping using STAZ-On on this. Let's do a couple at a time. Got STAZ-On in jet black. That's not showing up very well. I think the problem is my jet black isn't juicy enough. Let's see what happens if I try using, I've got a brown, I've got timber brown. I also have red. I was going to test out red too and see what happens, since these are destined for a postal themed journal. Let's try stamping these guys again. This brown is very not juicy, but I think I'm getting more ink on by just beating it into submission. So let's see what we get. All right. Either stubbornness is going to pay off, or I'm just going to realize I need to give up on this. We are going to try one more time with the red. I think part of the problem is that this piece is so dark that it's hard to get these guys to show up. So one more go with CEC1050 Blazing Red. And this one is fairly juicy, so hopefully we'll get a better result. Oh, actually that's showing up a little bit. It's interesting. All right, I think I am gonna shift this over. We'll do a few on the red because I think the Midnight Blue STAZ-On is gonna stamp really cool on the red. Set that aside. And I think I'm just gonna keep the two guys I've got on the block, pull out the Midnight Blue and just start by stamping those guys like over here and see how that goes. See that? That worked pretty darn good. That's kind of cool looking. All right. Now let's do some lift ink on this one and see what results we get. That stamp pad is very juicy because I went to clean it off and I was like, oh, I probably could have stamped it a couple more times because there's so much ink coming off. More of these global postmarks from Darkroom Door because they seem to be working out the best with the lift ink. Oh, that came out really good. Yeah, these guys seem to be working the best. And because we're using the lift ink, we're getting like 2 stampings for the price of 1. There's one more thing I want to try on the red. And then we're going to do the pink because there was something specific I wanted to try on the pink. And that is, I want to ground. Oh, let's see. Is it going to fit all the way? All right, there we go. It will fit going that way. I bet my stamping block is not long enough. That guy, no, of course not. Stamping this with the blue, Midnight Blue ink would look really kind of cool. Not sure how well this is going to come out just because I'm struggling to get the block to go down all the way. Not bad, not great. I think mostly because of the problems I was having. Definitely didn't stamp as well as those guys, but I think that was mostly me. Let's try doing one more. That definitely turned out a bit better. All right, let's move this out of the way, let it dry. Let's just fit going this way. I am going to grab a block. Also going to clean this off with a little hand sanitizer so I don't contaminate the lift ink. We're gonna give this one a go because I'm kind of curious to see if it'll work well. Let's give this one a go. This one might work. I think it depends on a couple of factors, including how light or how dark your background is. It did not stamp off much. I think it came out pretty good. I think I probably didn't ink up this portion of the stamp enough. But you can see the face, kind of. So you can kind of see her face. So, interesting. All right, I am gonna have a bit of a cleanup, and then I'll come back and we'll take a look at what we got done. Okay, so I'm gonna show you what we got done, and if you notice pieces missing, it's because I filmed this once, and then when I was editing the footage, realized there was so much glare you couldn't see anything. So, let's see. I think I did part of this one on camera, and I'm kind of like standing up so I can see and tilt things so that you can actually see them. And then I did some stamping with our STAZ-On on here. This one I did off camera. In fact, I think this one I might have inked off camera as well, because I did do a few off camera. If I did, then this one is one I added Juniper, Moss, and Monsoon to the Chronicle Mushroom Smudge Gravel color combo, and then stamped that with a Tim Holtz stamp, a floral stamp, which I really like how that came out. We did this one on camera, or at least this piece of it on camera, so that's kind of cool. And then I stamped some more pieces from that stamp set, and it's a Creative Expressions stamp set, and I will leave the name of it down below. Because I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. This one I did off camera, and I inked it off camera, and what I did was I added to our caramel and butterscotch, I added sepia and teakwood to get some more dark browns going on. Same thing with this one, I think. Yeah. And you can see I cut out a piece that I used, I think, in footage that's going to be coming up shortly. Here's the red one. I think I did all of this on camera. I don't think I did any additional stamping on this one off camera, but there you can see the lift worked really well, and I really do think the blue on the reds came out pretty cool. This one I stamped off camera. And I did a little bit of stamping with STAZ-On to create some interest, and then more of the lift. And then that one I did a lift and then stamped with STAZ-On to create a cool piece. This one apparently got misplaced and didn't get any stamping on it. And then this is the blue one that we stamped. And I don't think I did anything additionally with it off camera. But you will now see the footage where I showed you using that piece. Now I do want to do a little tester on using a piece on something, and I actually have a scrap from that Tim Holtz postal paper pack, and I was thinking, let's see what one of these guys looks like on there. I've got out my Fisker postage stamp scissors. Let's see if they'll cut, because oh no, I don't think they're gonna cut this, because they do not. Maybe if I put a piece of paper behind. One more shot. Nope, it does not like this paper. Okay, let's just cut it out with some scissors. That is fine. Kind of curious to see what this is going to look like stuck onto something. That's kind of cool. It may not have come out great, but I do kind of like that. The cutting was a little janky, but that's kind of cool, and to add some more pieces to make like a little cluster on that, I kind of like it. And let's pull off a piece of, I think I'm gonna grab from one of the ones I did off camera, just to give you like the look of one where it wasn't necessarily something like I did some random stamping over here, and if we just cut off a little strip. So got some script stamp on it. And let's see, I've got this piece sitting out that's eventually I'm gonna finish decorating. So maybe let's just add a little tape along there. Look at that, I like cut it the perfect height. There's what that looks like on the side of a piece. So yeah, I really like our stamped faux vintage tapes. So that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.